You know, you see it every day, every day. They'll hold their babies. They've got no strength left, and they're holding on to these children with every little bit. Fire me, you know? Maybe they will. Maybe after this they will, you know? But my conscience will be clean. That's way more important than my pension.
What I can do as an agent is say, this is going on. I need somebody to come in and look at it. And that's what I did. Maybe the lions will try to devour me, but if that's your plan, so be it. I'll accept it. I'm here to learn whatever lesson you got to teach me.
What is your price? Because if your price is not your life, then you are for sale. Welcome back to the Price is My Life podcast. This episode is with another one of my heroes. You saw last week the Florida Tech whistleblower. Well, we follow on the footsteps with another whistleblower, but not inside a university, but inside the Border Patrol. Aaron Veckey has served in the U.S. Border Patrol, and 17 and a half years into serving in the Border Patrol in Arizona, made the decision to come forward with formal allegations exposing what Mr. Veckey called systemic human rights violations, internal cover-ups, and what appeared to be a surrender of operational control to the cartels, with information about what was happening to illegal immigrants at these facilities. Risking his pension, career, and personal safety, Aaron Veckey filed formal whistleblower complaints with the Office of Special Counsel and faced illegal gag orders and retaliation. Aaron Veckey risked his pension, his career, his professional reputation, and filed formal whistleblower complaints with the Office of Special Counsel, faced illegal gag orders and retaliation for telling the truth. His story is one of conscience, courage, and conviction, and came on the heels of Border Patrol Agent Zachary Apathy at the ending in Line in the Sand with the call to action for people to step forward and tell the truth. Aaron, thank you so much for being here in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Thanks for having me, James.
I want to start with this clip, which is one of the most profound things I've ever heard from anybody, that you said to me in February. I believe it's us in a hotel room in Arizona, and I was meeting with Monica, the Border Patrol agent who came forward, exposing these teenage boys who go back to Mexico and get recruited to do it. So if we could pull this clip up in the hotel room.
So let's say you're a real go-getter,
Yeah.
and you're surrounded by, maybe on that particular shift, you've got 3 or 4 guys that just don't, they're subscribed to the dogma of apathy, and they don't care, and you're the only guy that does, It's like they've got this religious dogma where they feel like they're virtuous. They're almost enlightened by not caring.
They're enlightened by not caring.
And they try to spread this. They do. They go around, what the... You know how much easier your life would be if you didn't care? If you just took the paycheck, shut up, and stopped complaining. You would be so much better off. You don't understand what you're doing to yourself. It's just a job. It brings you down to their level of thought, and it makes them feel.
It makes them feel better about what they're doing.
Yeah, I think so.
So the dogma or the religion of apathy. Yeah. I'd never heard that before.
So it's just something I've realized over the years that I've noticed in some of the guys in the Border Patrol, some of the guys I've worked with, their attitude has been one that they've kind of become more ridiculing people who work hard, who stay late, who put in the effort. And the way I've kind of come to describe it is that religion of apathy, where, as you heard, where they've just kind of, it really seems like they want to convince you that if you let it go, if you let that drive go, you will be free of the burden of caring. You will actually be enlightened like they are, and they talk down to you like you're the fool for caring so much about this job that you swore an oath to do, And I sometimes will remind them, I'm like, listen, I've had other jobs. I didn't swear an oath to the restaurants I used to work in. I swore an oath to this job. And it is that important that we give it a little more effort than that, job working at the shoe store or the line cook position. And those are great noble jobs when you're earning a paycheck for a family. But I didn't swear an oath to those jobs. I swore an oath to the Border Patrol. And I do believe that matters. I do believe that's something. And for whatever reason, over the years, there has been a shift. In the beginning, when I first came into the patrol, there were more oftentimes agents that would ridicule people for not caring, ridicule people for leaving early, leaving without doing their due diligence. Now there's just more and more people that have subscribed to that religion or that dogma of apathy. And it's just, and it creeps like like some sort of.
Why did it change?
I think the politics of the patrol I think there's a lot of systemic problems. I think it's kind of possibly by design. I think the morale I think the patrol has a lot of systemic issues that have dragged down the morale in the patrol. So it's created an atmosphere where guys don't want to give it their all. So even I think the standards in the patrol are lower than they ever used to be. You don't have those gritty guys like you used to, or you don't have the same percentage of gritty guys. You used to have a lot more just guys that were here doing gritty work, pretty high moral-minded guys that would, give a lot more for the job, and you don't have that. So I think the process, the retention process, there is no retention standard. So you can have really mediocre people get a job in the patrol and stay there their whole careers. So I think there's just a lot of systemic problems that wears on good agents, and then even the mediocre agents, because you can have really bad agents. You can have really bad people with bad moral character get a job in law enforcement. I'm sure it's not just the patrol, and they can stay there, and they can really drag the morale of the whole patrol down, or the whole station down. At least, and again, I've only worked at two stations, Ajo being the main one.
Ajo is in Arizona.
Yes, Ajo stations. Yeah. So I think over the years they've done a lot with kind of watering down the caliber of agent. To put it, I guess, summarize would be they've gone with quality over quantity, or quantity over quality. So the quality of agent, it's just not as high as it used to be, in my opinion. And I think that happens whether it's a Republican administration or a Democrat administration, because the Republicans, they're going to say, we need boots on the ground. We need boots on the ground. Check his pulse. He's good. And you can find flaws in guys and say, hey, this guy shouldn't have this job. In the hiring process, in the weeding out process.
But it's competitive to be a Border Patrol agent, isn't it?
Well, you would think, it should be.
It's a $130,000 a year job.
It's a great salary. I think when I left, I was making in between $130,000, $140,000. And here's the kicker, though. If you and I get a job in the Border Patrol, we start the same day, I can run around like crazy doing everything the Border Patrol asked me and more from the day I got hired. You can decide after a year, you know what? I've seen and done everything I wanted to do in the Border Patrol. I'm just going to sit on my butt. I'm going to come to work and go to sleep. And you can do that for the next 20 years. Meanwhile, I run around and chase people down.
Just explain briefly, for those of you who didn't see the Aaron Veckey video that we published, and much of our audience has, but you ran people down. You were a tracker.
Yes.
What is that?
Yeah, I consider myself a brush agent.
A brush agent.
A brush agent.
Is that a term the Border Patrol gives?
I think so. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty good vernacular for what I do. So I would be someone who, yeah, I like to track, I like to lay in, I like to, with the specialty units I've been part of are, surveillance units, sensor units, horse patrol. So yeah, I work in the dirt. I would have affectionately call me and others like me would be knuckle draggers, but jokingly, but not so much. We're knuckle
Do you like
draggers
being
to
in the
a
dirt?
certain extent. Yeah, I like being in the dirt.
What did you like about it?
Um, it's just, I think it just something I'd naturally do. If I wasn't in the desert, in the dirt, I'd be in a stream somewhere. And unfortunately, and I know it might sound callous to put it in that, um, to refer to chasing aliens as like fishing, but it's similar to that. It's coming around a bend, wondering where the next sweet spot for fish are going to be. It's the same thing when you're on sign on a trail pushing sign for a group of 10 or 15 people. Where are they going to be sleeping? Where am I going to find them taking a break? So that drive, that push to stay on the sign and maybe find people in a thicket or over the next ridge line, that's very similar to that I don't know, that whatever's in my veins that drives me to do that. It's the same thing. Maybe it's adrenaline. I don't know. It could be an adrenaline junkie and get the same kind of rush
It's
from
like
it.
a cat and mouse game.
It's very much cat and mouse.
That's what the guy in Line in the Sand. I think we have a clip of us talking to a Border Patrol agent. When I made the film Line in the Sand, there was one guy in the SUV in El Paso, and he kind of embodied what you're talking about. It was just this sort of defeat in him, like it's a cat and mouse game. I might catch you today, you might get away. It just seemed very futile. That there's a futility to what these guys were going through. Did you feel that or sense that?
The futility for the aliens, the ones being chased, the cat or the mouse, or both? Because sometimes I suppose.
Well, we're gonna play the clip here in a minute, but as they're pulling it up, I think it's like a futility.
Take your hidden
Oh, here we go. This is an
camera.
El Paso.
Go up to that man.
The job pays well. It's frustrating now. It used to be fun. We used to be able to do our jobs. It's harder now. We vent to our superiors. Our superiors vent up, but at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of pawns.
Pawns.
We have no say. We have no voice. But I'll be honest with you, I have 5 years to go. I just gotta
maintain my sanity.
My sanity. So,
Yeah.
it was fun. That whole cat and mouse
There it is,
game.
cat and mouse
It's a
game.
game. You try today, I got you. You try tomorrow, I'll get you again. You try the next day, you didn't get me, you won that game. You're worth it. Stay here, make that money, don't get caught.
I mean, he's telling the person that, oh yeah, don't get caught. That seems kind of contrary to the stated mission of the Border Patrol, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Don't get caught. Do you say that too?
Don't get caught. Well, I mean, okay. I think in the totality of the circumstances, especially with the dynamic between, like, say, Mexicans and Mexican nationals and the Border Patrol, they come and we see them the next day. So I catch groups there. There was a video of me telling some guys, don't worry, you'll be back tomorrow, and we're laughing and joking, and somebody posted it online. So yeah, I think there's the same way they write corridos, I think, or the
What is
music. I think that's what it's called. The smuggling music, that's popular down in Mexico and parts of the Southwest. Corridos, I think, is what it is. But, and it'll kind of tell about their tales. I think there's that dynamic of the cat and mouse dynamic, in particular with Border Patrol agents and Mexican nationals, where this is just going, this is just daily life, now flash forward to what happened with obviously the Biden administration, where that was something completely different that nobody had ever seen before. And you talk about being, demoralized or feeling defeated. I think was that what he was referring to?
This
was feeling like a pawn.
April of 2024.
Yeah. So I think, and one of the conclusions I came to with as far as the feeling like a pawn, and where I really became sympathetic to, I shouldn't say sympathetic, but empathetic maybe, to the plight of all the immigrants coming in, was I realized that we were all pawns. The agents were pawns and the immigrants were pawns, because it was so unlike anything we had seen before. It wasn't just this natural, the Mexican nationals coming here working all the time and going back. They come back, they come and they go. The drug mules come and go. They drop their drugs, they come back. It's constantly coming and going. This was something wildly different. This was every country in the world was knocking on our door.
Over what time period did you witness this?
I mean, this was. I mean, it happened in earnest. It started happening with the Obama years, when I think a lot of the Indians, the Sikhs, were showing up, if I'm not mistaken, or at least I take that back. Maybe it was a lot of the Salvadoreño families, the people that from El Salvador, and the Guatemalan families in particular during the Obama administration. Maybe it was even some of the Indian families too.
What year did you start? 2004?
I started in 2005.
So that was only 4 years before Obama came in.
Yeah, we had Obama. Sometime during the Obama administration, we had some big groups that were showing up, and then that's pretty much stopped. Trump did get a handle on some of it, but in earnest, I mean, when the wheels fell off, was the last, the Biden. Biden blew the doors off.
But going back to like 2005, that was George W. Bush when you were 31, 32 years old.
Yeah, and then it was just your run of the mill. It was your standard everything pre 2000s.
What was that like? What was that existence like with during the Obama administration? It was just a trickle in, or how did it compare to like present day?
I mean, the thing is, the border's always been wide open. I mean, it's always been wide open. When I first got here, we had literally just a 3-strand or 4-strand barbed wire fence, and that was down in most of the places. The Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation, there's not a lot that we can do without a lot of special lawmaking wrangling going on. So they have barbed wire fence that's down or it used to be down in a lot of the places. But there used to be drive-through, vehicles would drive through. So this is Bush era stuff. Bush era stuff. We would have vehicles driving through with makeshift campers and 3,000 pounds in each vehicle, and multiple vehicles at a time driving up the road loaded with marijuana, like no big deal. This is post 9/11. Mm-hmm. This is post 9/11. They would drive up paved roads in the middle of the night at will, and they'd fly ultralights through northbound towards Phoenix, and we would pretty much do nothing about it. And the ultralights, they'd tell us to do goofy stuff like, hey, see if you can go get eyes on it. Like, go get eyes on an ultralight flying around in the middle of the night, dropping loads of God knows what. Those were our directives. And I remember one time talking about blowing the whistle on that, because I thought it was highly offensive that every day we're having ultralight incursions post 9/11.
What's ultralight?
Like ultralight aircraft. A small aircraft flown by a person, flying with 400 pounds, 300 pounds, whatever they could carry, and then flying up towards, like, say, Casa Grande, and then pulling the lever and dropping it off into somebody's backyard, I guess. And the only thing we could do was they want us to try to spot it, and this would happen nightly. And I always thought, this is crazy. This is happening every night, not every night, constantly, daily. These would be detected, but we weren't doing anything about it. I always thought it was just offensive that, post 9/11, we've got people in Afghanistan. We say we're defending the homeland, with and they've just put that fence up. That was one of the first real fences they put up, and they were cutting through that fence, lifting that fence up like crazy. They would lift the fence up to drive vehicles underneath and to run dope groups underneath the fence. It was, I don't know who built that first fence down in the port, down in Lukeville, but the Lukeville port of entry, the first fence that I saw go up, it was so easy to lift that fence that they would rather lift it in some places than cut through it or go over it. So they would call what we call popping the panels. They'd pop the panels, and sometimes they'd cut the vehicle barricade on the other side, and they'd drive vehicles underneath the fence. Well, I asked a contractor one time, like, why don't you preemptively, because there was a way to stop them from lifting the panels. I said, why don't you do this? Why don't you come out and do this? Well, we're not contracted to make improvements. We can only make repairs. Well, imagine being a contractor coming down to Phoenix from Phoenix all the way to Lukeville. I mean, this is a pretty good, probably a great cash cow.
Presumably. That's not allowed to make improvements, just repairs.
Right. So they come down every day making repairs to this fence.
We're making money off
which is a shoddy contract, clearly, because it's a shoddy fence.
Yeah.
The
when we were in El
fence is
Paso,
garbage.
we had those little chicken grates, and we noticed they were coming along and they were repairing them. And
it was basically the chicken grate. It's the same thing.
So they're making money off this.
They're making repairs daily. It's a never-ending cycle.
It's 2005, and I'm just trying to get an overview because 20 years. Or how long were you in the Border Patrol?
20 years. Exactly.
You just retired. Like when?
I retired on the date. Yeah, get me
What
out
day
of there.
did you retire?
Literally June 27th.
So it's exactly 20 years.
Yeah. Well, my first day was June 27th.
Counting down the days. And congratulations, recently
Thank
you got married.
We're standing up to the powers that tried to discredit us, silence us, smear us, raid us, and throw us in jail. They've awakened a sleeping giant. We're building a movement of transparency and accountability in both the public and private sectors because we run from nothing. We hide from nothing. And when you join and get your full access pass, you fuel a movement for truth. We are the media now.
In the years 2005 through the Obama administration, you noticed that things kind of picked up in the Obama administration. But before then, you talk about the politics of the patrol and morality. Just generally speaking, the men were of a higher caliber in 2005.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, for sure. I think it was less. I think the guys really wanted. I think they were less career minded. I think climbing the ladder was less of a. It wasn't something guys really wanted to do. You had to, it was. You wanted to go out there and we were just more gritty. We were men of getting out there in the brush, catching a vehicle, finding that big dope load, running stuff down. Guys souped up reluctantly, and when I say souped up, became supervisors, climbing the chain.
Souped up. It's like in sailing, we say we like the journey. We're not necessarily about the destination.
Right.
So you're saying the gritty guys were like, just want to do the work, just want to do the job.
Want to do the work. Yeah.
And you never wanted to be supervisor.
No.
I mean, what is a supervisor like? Your supervisor, is that kind of a desk thing, or do they go out in the field as well? Or
some of the soups do get out in the field, and some of them are good. I invite first line soups to my house for barbecues. Beyond that, I do not, and I do not because I don't trust them. Because I've seen the two-facedness. I've seen the fact that they will tell me they're going to do something and they don't. I've seen the.
Is that true in most cases above the supervisor?
I think that I've just had enough bad dealings where I just don't trust them. I've seen the disconnect that they have from the field.
What's the position above supervisor?
Right now, it's watch commander. It used to be field operations supervisor, FOS we used to call it, but now it's watch.
So for like Ajo, how it works is there's the patrol agents, there's supervisor, and the watch commander is in charge of the entire.
Watch commander would be in charge of like the shifts or something.
And then above watch commander?
I think they have like a DPAC or so. I'm not even, honestly, once it get above watch commander, I don't.
But it's so interesting. I wonder if it was true.
I want to shake your hand at that point. I'm just like, get away from me.
In 2005, was it true that watch commanders it was still the same sort of political issues?
I suspect not. And I'll tell you what. Okay, so here's a classic. And I've mostly been in Ajo, right? So in Ajo at that time, we had a patrol agent in charge who had been there for a good amount of time. And we had, and it was a much smaller station, much fewer less manpower, right? We had fewer guys there, guys and gals, very, very fewer agents. But since then, that station has become like a training ground for patrol agents in charge. So the patrol agent in charge, at that station, they've had now, or at least in the time that I was there, I want to say from 2005 to 2025, somewhere around 20 plus people acting as patrol agent in charge, you know? So, and I think the patrol agent in charge when I was first there, he was there for several years. But after that, these guys come and go. Well, and then they all promote. Even the guy that I made the allegations, the patrol agent in charge, when I made the allegations, hey, this is happening. And I said, we're violating these court orders. And it's clear as day that we're violating these court orders. They're making us do it. Da, 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 da. That guy promoted. He's moved up afterwards. And they under his command, under his watch, they lied about me and they gave me this gag order against my rights. OSC agreed. Border Patrol had to relent. They still promote him. This is like a training ground for their chosen, presumably. I mean, that's one can kind of draw that conclusion. But 20 patrol agents in charge come into a station that's a hard to fill spot. The morale's low. I need somebody to come in there and own that station as an agent, that loves the guys, that is willing, again, the grit, to put in the work for the station. Don't come in and say, this is my station now, shut up and do what you're told. No, I got granddaughters that grew up in this town. I got my kids went to school at this K through 12. Yeah, my kids went to school at this K through 12. I got a granddaughter here. You know what I mean? I moved my family out here for the long haul. And now you're going to come in and tell me and the guys who I've worked with for all these years, ran through these deserts, and treated people with respect. Now you're going to come here, you're here for 6 months, and tell me I got to treat people like crap because this is your station? And then you're going to tell me this is a moral, this agency has integrity? And now you're going to, and when I report you for making us do this, you're going to investigate me for it. And then you promote, I mean, I think that's.
I mean, are these people, you're talking about treat people like crap, like the illegal immigrants?
Yeah, treating the illegal aliens like crap, making us do it. But I think that's essentially the problem. You got people coming in, you've got this chain of command that's broken. And I was just talking to a friend about it, really good guy that I trust, and we were talking about kind of like some of the issues. We're talking about what's wrong. Why do agents not care anymore? And like, even in my position, why couldn't I drum up more support? Why couldn't I bring more whistleblowers to you? Why couldn't I bring more whistleblowers to OSC? Right?
We got one or two, but it was tough.
But the thing is I look at it like, I don't even know that it's my job to, right? It's not my job to. It's not my job to in the agency, right? I rang the bell, rang the alarm, sounded the alarm, whatever. But the Border Patrol, at least where I'm standing from in my career, we have plenty of administrators, but we don't have leadership. Okay? Where's our leadership? Where's that guy that comes into Ajo and says, you know what? I'm here for you guys. I want to be at this station. I want to dig us out of this crap that this agency has dug. I want to be here and I want to support you guys, and I'm not going anywhere. I want to know what it's like to be an Ajo agent.
Is that type of mentality even possible in a bureaucracy?
And that's the thing.
Because you're describing like the chain of command issues. You what I found really interesting about what you said is, okay, you have the supervisor and the guy, but I don't trust that guy. Is that true of all bureaucracy right now, or is it unique to the Border Patrol?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if this is a Border Patrol issue or just a human nature issue in regards to bureaucracy. I don't know if you have any insight into that.
Right. Now that's okay. Now that's something I completely agree with you. That could be, Brent, you could push that out further, like culturally speaking, like some of the issues that the Border Patrol has, that our bureaucracy has, is it cultural problems that drive some of the stuff, right? You can do that. But I got to look from my standpoint with the Border Patrol. I don't know what led to the problems we had. I can't just sit there and say, well, it was management, it was this, it was that. What I can do as an agent is say, this is going on. I need somebody to come in and look at it. And that's what I did. And they didn't. And then I have my, you know what I mean? Like I can have my opinions, which is kind of what we're talking about, some opinions. I could say, hey, it's my opinion. We need a patrol agent in charge that cares. The culture of the Border Patrol needs to change, stuff like that, right? But factually, I can definitely tell you there are some things that happened down there that were wrong. And I pointed it out, and I begged Office of Special Counsel to send investigators in, and they didn't. Instead, they investigated me.
Yeah.
And
that's true of every single
right?
person that I talk to
Yeah.
these days. Maybe it didn't use, like in 2005, would it have been different?
In 2005, would it have been? Oh, in 2005, things were. Would it have been different? Yeah.
Was that? I mean, I suppose, you're looking at a bureaucracy where it's inherent in the bureaucracy to try to protect itself, and we see that with the FBI right now and protecting their informants and their sources, and I guess the system wants to protect itself, so you're trying to expose it.
You know what I think would have been different in 2005? I think what would have been different in 2005 would have been the agents, the patrol agent in charge, the middle management would have pushed back on what was happening. I think middle management would have also filed complaints about what we were doing because the opportunity was there. We had the court order that said, hey, you can't do this. It wouldn't have been left up to line agents like myself to file that complaint. The management would have supported me in filing that. Management, and it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me. I wasn't the first person to go to management even at the station level and say, hey, we're not supposed to be doing this. And part of it was we had a read-in sign. They were making us sign something saying, hey, read this court order and don't do it. And make sure you read, and every quarter, read this, make sure you don't do it. And then they say, go do it. And it was the first people to start raising the alarm were the processing gurus. And they were coming to management every muster and saying, hey, we're totally violating this court order. And they'd say, and middle management, well, this is coming from on high. These are the orders. These are marching orders, guys. Do it. Now it's my opinion, a good border patrol agent, like a good patrol agent in charge, would recognize that partially being a good, I'm trying to find the right words to phrase this, but being a good agent would have been to also embrace the court order, because it would have forced them to look at what was going on. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Instead of just bringing everybody in. So they could have said, hey, we're at capacity. We're not going to bring any more people in. And it would have forced the administration or I'm not a lawyer, but it would have possibly forced maybe the Secretary of Homeland Security to say, hey, we got a problem over here. Tucson sector, we've got stations that are saying they're not going to pick up any more aliens because they've got a court order standing in their way. I don't know how that would have played out, but I feel like in 2005, more management would have pushed that envelope, would have stood by the agents and said, hey, you know what? We're making our agents sign this thing that says they're not going to violate this court order. I'm going to go back to my chief and say, hey, we're not going to violate this court order. We're standing with our agents down here. And let's go see how that plays out. And if they have, and one of the integrity issues that I brought up with my management, and they would challenge me. I had this conversation in the gym with one of my middle management guys, and he had climbed up a little further, and he was somebody who in the past I had invited to barbecues, and he said to me, he said, "Oh, Veckey, I guess I'm not invited to your barbecues anymore." I said, "No, you're not." And he's like, "Oh, and we kind of talked about it." I said, "There's an integrity problem at this station with you guys." He said, "Well, what do you mean, Veckey?" I said, "Well, this is what I mean." I says, "Every day you guys come into muster, you agree with us that there's something wrong with what's going on when we voice our opinions. And every day you tell us that, well, it's coming on hot from on high. You know it's wrong, that there's this, we shouldn't be doing this, or that this flies in the face of everything we're supposed to be doing as Border Patrol agents, and that we're violating court orders and whatnot, but you're being told to do it. But yet and still, you as watch commanders order 40 more people to go do it." I said, if there was integrity, if you guys had integrity, one of you by now would have taken the bars off your leave or off your collar, and you would have gone in and told the person above you, "I cannot go in there and order these men and women to do this because I know it's wrong."
They said it was wrong to you.
They
privately.
said it's wrong.
How did they say it's wrong?
They will say, "Yeah, this sucks, guys. We're probably out of policy. We're probably
it's almost like
violating
it's
the quarter."
easier. Easier to just resign themselves or resign yourself, not you, but any individual, to just. It's like you say. It's a religion of apathy. It's easier not to give a damn.
Yeah.
It's like that scene in Rudy where you ever seen that movie, the football movie, where all the players take off they put the jersey on the table, and this is for Rudy. That's what it would remind me of. All these watch commanders walking in and taking off their thing, but it's just easier not to. It's almost like they've resigned themselves, and is that? But I don't know if. Just because you're in the Border Patrol and you're not a social psychologist, but a question I have is this something that's happening in all institutions? Or is the Border Patrol, is it worse there? Or is it better in the Border Patrol than most institutions relative to other areas of society? Because, I see this everywhere. Yeah. Everything seems to have no integrity anymore. And I'm just wondering if that's pretty much that trend is happening everywhere, or is it more so in Border Patrol, in your opinion?
Man, that's tough. I mean, I see a lot of really good guys too, so I think.
But not at the watch commander level.
Right.
When you say a lot of good guys, you're talking about the agents.
Right. I see a lot of good agents. And it is tough because, on one hand, I could see some really great guys, and then I could see some bad guys. I mean, it's a cross section of society, right? But yeah, the higher up in the food chain you go in the bureaucracy, it definitely seems to get a little smarmy. Is that the word?
Let's take a look at the abuses you witnessed at the Ajo Border Patrol station. There was a makeshift canopy at the Border Patrol station in Ajo. People were crowded. They were burning or freezing, depending upon the weather, sleeping in puddles, fighting over shade. Yeah. And you had showed me this canopy personally. I went there in Arizona. We can pull that up. I mean, before as we're pulling this up, oh, there it is. They're look like baked potatoes in metal blankets.
That was the improved shelter. That's an improved shelter.
That's the improved one.
Yeah, that's the good one. Quick. Can I tell you a quick story there? So they had moved them to that, and that was a spot where it was actually might have been worse because that was the parking lot, and I told the patrol agent in charge, like when I saw them putting there, they're like, "Sir, that actually gets standing water. There's gonna be standing water there. They're not even gonna be able to, at least before where I showed you there were rocks and there was no standing water. Like they're not even gonna be able to lay down here. I mean, they're not gonna be able to lay down when it rains, because it rains, and usually it rains in the coldest temperatures. One day, the retaliation that I faced, I believe, was pretty clear cut. it came on the heels of I had come to work one day, and I had seen about, it was only one of those cells was full, but it was like 60 dudes in there. This was maybe upper 40s at the time, but upper 40s is cold. I mean, especially, if you're not used to 40-degree temps. So it's upper 40s. These guys, none of them had their jackets, and they were cold. They didn't have any of the blankets. Nobody had given them any blankets. They had heaters, but nobody had turned them on. And so I'm coming in at 10 p.m. And I saw the guys. You remember I think it was Abu Ghraib, where they were like dogpiling people naked. There was 60 dudes, strangers, were in the corner, piled up, like intertwined, hugging each other, completely piled up to try to stay warm. And that's when I flipped out on one of the guys who was an acting watch commander. I saw him and I caught him. I started handing out blankets, and I got a little unprofessional. I'm like, hey, you know what? You mother effers think this is funny, because some of the guys think it's funny. Some of the guys
they thought it was funny.
Some of the guys think that type of stuff is funny. It's like, well, this is what they get for coming here, So we're not going to give them.
A lot of people on the right might be listening to this and think, yeah, well, they're illegal immigrants. So
right. That's
it's better than getting shot.
Yeah.
What are your reaction to that?
Some of the guys, that's so that's the take that some of the people have. But here's the thing. When I'm a Border Patrol agent, I'm a law enforcement officer, okay? It's not my job to dole out punishment. It's my job to make arrests. But besides that, and what I told him that night was, I'm a Christian, first and foremost. It's not my job to punish these people for coming here illegally. It's not my job to try to look at them. That one's definitely the terrorist.
Is that what they do?
That one's definitely the rapist.
Did you see?
Well, no, but I mean, people that. A lot of, I don't want to paint, certain agents will definitely they're all terrorists, they're all rapists, they're all criminal, of course. A lot of the people coming here are probably, a lot of the people coming here are probably not good guys. There's no doubt about it. Trust me. I've had people come through, and it was pretty, it's pretty sickening. Forget about you see this every day, and this is where the administration completely full of crap. They're all family units. That was a nonsense. You've seen enough video. You've posted enough stuff. The notion that these were people coming here because we're the American population is on decline, so we need more people to come here and breed is absurd. They were bringing in tons of single men, 6 foot tall, 6'3", 170, 80 pounds, 25 years old by the droves. And I would get groups of, 20, 30 men from the same countries countries where, I have notoriously hotbeds for terrorism and stuff like that. And I was learning Punjabi, I was learning Arabic, I was learning, French, trying to, just make small talk with some of these people just to, try to learn, and you try to do the human stuff with these people because you're like, hey, this is my life now, right? And you will get guys, and it's like they've been trained. They will not crack a smile.
Yeah, I saw that too when I was in the desert, that it's like they were told, and there were some Turkish men I spoke with in east of San Diego, and they almost hushed each other.
Yeah.
Are they told not to talk?
I think so. I think
by who?
I don't. Who knows?
Maybe you heard something or picked up something in your work in Arizona. They're very disciplined about it. It's pretty remarkable.
I've seen guys that I wouldn't doubt that they came from some sort of training, or at least were told to harden their hearts. How about that? They were trained to harden their hearts. That do not let these we are not their friends. And they were.
It's incredible discipline because there's so many of these people coming over, and none of them are willing to tell you the specifics. Yeah. And there was that scene in Line in the Sand where the guy said a travel agent sent him.
Yeah.
And then he made this gesture where he put his hand over his throat, like he's slitting his own throat. If he tells the truth, he'll be killed.
But
mean,
it almost is like a travel agent. We'll get like brochures. They get some imam in New York constantly, over and over again. That's my uncle. My uncle's my sponsor, and we just take it. Okay, yeah, your uncle, so and so, imam, so and so in New York, I'm like, have you seen this? And the intel guys or the prosecute guy, yeah, no, that's what we're doing these days. They come in and they all have it's obviously like they travel. It is like the travel agent, whatever country they came from, and this was not some organic just happenings where these people in Mauritania, Senegal, Malaysia.
well, let's talk.
Just
Let's walk through some more. Yeah, you said that when you were forced to take jackets from breastfeeding women in 30, 40, and 50 degree weather. How did the other guards or the other Border Patrol agents respond to that?
For the most part, most people fell in line with it, and went along with it. There was definitely people, especially as it got colder. I think a lot of the younger agents were really quick to start siding with me.
Did anyone else say anything like
I
this
actually
is crazy?
There was a watch commander, and I thanked him for it. There was a newer watch commander who got there, who did send out an email that at least, and you could. I wish he had done more, but he had sent out an email saying, "Look, it's an officer discretion thing. If you want to give them their jackets, you can give them their jackets." Basically, so it kind of loosened up.
Okay,
but I think the whole thing is that they were basically saying because the buses weren't allowing them, we had to take them, but they had to have them off at the station anyways and whatnot. But lots of times we were taking the jackets hours before they even got to the station. And then besides that, they're taking them off of all of the men who were out in those cages for, sometimes a day at a time. I don't even know how many hours, but long, well over 12 hours for sure. But yeah, so not just at the station, but lined up along the wall. Sometimes guys would prematurely take their jackets and stuff, and yeah, I mean, there's definitely an element of agents out there that, like, don't care. They don't care that these people are freezing. And the ironic thing about it is those guys, they're the first ones to sit in their trucks with the heat on,
Yeah.
In the same conditions, they'll watch. They'll sit in their trucks with their heat on, and they'll watch the women and children and the men all sitting there freezing, and they'll sit there and the heaters on, and they won't give them their, they'll go take their jackets.
You said you told the agent in charge they're going to have a mass casualty event inside the parking lot and begged him to get shade since it was over 110 degrees. And what happened there?
Nothing. They didn't do anything about it.
There are videos where you took people lined up sitting, standing, and laying against the wall. And a video of an officer handing out waters to people from the other side of the wall.
Yeah.
We have that video.
Oh, yeah.
What's this?
That's
It's in Arizona?
Yeah.
And
that's actually very close to the port. That's actually another disturbing thing too, because that was a group of Senegalese men. I believe they were Senegalese. They got cut off from their group. I think half of them got through, the other half didn't. And so we convinced them to stop. When they built that wall, the Park Service or somebody, I don't know, we had to put in floodgates. So there's all these floodgates going up and down that wall. And during the monsoon season, they have to open the floodgates to allow water to flow, because otherwise the town south of the port had gotten flooded in the past. So they put these floodgates in. Anyway, so they were coming close to getting getting north through one of these floodgates, but we stopped them and convinced them to go back to the port of entry. Now, these people were begging us, no, don't, they're going to kill us. Well, we hear that all the time. the Mexicans don't like us here, and they're begging us to let us come through. They didn't know that they could, that there was a hole right there. But we said, hey, yeah, and they were like, we want to claim asylum. Okay, well, it's not as a Border Patrol agent, I don't adjudicate who comes through the wall. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have I can't even let you, okay. It's not my job to decide whether or not you're claiming asylum or who you are. Your job, if you got to claim asylum, is to go through the port of entry and make your claim for asylum. So we convinced these guys to do that. As soon as they get close to the port of entry, they had the Mexican aduaneros, I think that's what they're called, the Mexican port workers, pushed them back, drove them back, wouldn't let them even come close to the port of entry. So we thought that was odd. Like, well, wait a minute. These are supposedly asylum seekers, right? All the asylum seekers and refugees, we're welcoming them, right? That's what you hear on the news. They're asylum seekers. They're refugees. Why can't they come through the port of entry? Well, and talking to a port of entry supervisor about the matter, because I said, hey, we got these, there's 22 Senegalese here trying to come through the port of entry, but the Mexican workers won't let them. This port of entry, or one of our guys, but Customs and Border, CBP, one of the blue uniform guys, he tells me, he goes, oh, I'm glad they didn't. I would have shut the gate on them. I was like, you would have shut huh? He says, yeah, we can't handle that kind of, that many people claiming refugee status here. I was like, well, that's your guys' job. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, we only got so many people on duty. I'm like, we got 400 people on the other side of the hill over here that we're dealing with that are sitting here waiting for us to pick them up and take them to the station. He's like, yeah, but you're a big station. I'm like, yeah, but we've got 10 people on shift right now, He's like, you know what? I'm not even supposed to be talking about it. And he kind of blows me off and shakes my hand and walks away. But what I realized is, so all these refugees and all these asylum seekers, as they were called, weren't even allowed to come in through the right way. Now, whether it's because Mexico wouldn't let them through, or the cartels wouldn't let them through, or people on our own side, the decision makers on our own side, somebody said, you guys aren't allowed to come through the port of entry. And they pushed and funneled these people through holes in the fence into the Border Patrol. And I do believe, again, not that I'm a lawyer, but that's because the Border Patrol, as a Border Patrol agent, I don't get to make that call. All we can do is give you notice to appear,
process them,
go see a judge, process.
You're a processing organization,
and then they can give you,
You don't really enforce the law, do you?
What's
anymore?
that?
Does the Border Patrol agents enforce the law?
I mean, at that time we weren't. At that time we really weren't. And in fact, I mean, they did more to push policy on us. We were told during use of force training, we couldn't area saturate with pepper ball launchers if we couldn't shoot pepper balls. This is what we were told, at least at one of the trainings out. Unless they're menacing us. So you could have somebody cutting through the wall, and you can't launch a pepper ball in his direction.
That's what I was witnessing in California. They were in a saw and they were cutting the wall.
Yeah,
What can you do?
Apparently, at that time, you couldn't do anything.
If they're with a gun and with a big, dangerous saw sawing through the wall, you can't stop them.
Yeah, at that time, at least the way. Well, now whether it was wrongly conveyed.
What about before that time? What about in 2006?
I will say this, and not being a policy expert, it's my opinion that over the years, the patrol regularly creates policy, or it goes back and forth. Sometimes I'll say, sometimes they cut us loose and they allow us to do our jobs, but sometimes for whatever reason, they create policy, or at least they create a boogeyman that somehow we're going to get in trouble for, pepperballing a Mexican cartel worker for cutting the fence. That sounds absurd on its face, right? That I can't physically defend a physical barrier. Because if I can't physically defend the physical barrier, what's to keep them from coming in with a backhoe and pulling the whole thing down?
Yeah, everyone asked this question. It's insane.
It sounds ludicrous on its face, right? But they convince you, no.
Well, we talk about these
gonna
abstractions
right?
and these things, and no one really understands what any of it means. How do we get here? But certainly, a member of the cartel sawing through the fence,
right,
which is what I witnessed, and calling me a faggot over the radio, and mocking me as I'm standing on American soil. They're not standing on America. You're in Mexico. I don't know if we have that clip, Andrew, but this cartel clip, which we'll pull up. Which, for those who are listening and not watching, it might be a little bit hard to follow because it's more of something that you witness. But it was like, my first perspective is, why aren't you shooting those guys? Why aren't you stopping them? They're literally destroying federal property. And
we have management. I swear, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we have lawyers, and that's why. Maybe we have lawyers that believe. I can't physically push somebody back from coming through a hole in the wall. Yeah. Unless they're, again, menacing me.
It seems like if they have a big
I can stand there,
saw.
Right? Yeah. I can stand there in the way, but I can't push them.
I see.
As they're coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we'll have. I've seen some of these people that come through, and you'll do everything. You'll have your show of force, your pepper balls, your guns, and all this. And I watched a family one time, and they just, you know what they did? They had the cartels yelling at them, just keep going. And they led with their kid. They put their 14-year-old kid and had their 14-year-old kid, and they eventually they backed down.
Or in the case of the cartel that I saw, if they retreated, they'd get shot. The people that were the scouts and the people, I'm sure they can't retreat. I shouldn't have trusted these guys, but I did trust these guys.
A lot of people thought there was malfeasance. I would prefer to say ignorant of those events. I didn't want to know.
Nonprofit boards of directors can be very, very dangerous.
Fortunately, I have recordings and documents to back up everything I'm about to tell you.
Employees were starting to bundle up and talk.
If we're about to paint James as a criminal, it better be fucking good.
They sent a pic of me nailed to a cross.
They used these kids. Matt used them to further his agenda.
The reason why James was bad was morphing.
I never lived this lifestyle with black cards.
He's a mean boss.
Stress with his girlfriend is not appropriate.
I don't know that James has a private life.
James took a pregnant woman's sandwich. And these are people that we thought were people with integrity.
Who on the board is in control?
Turns out board members are taking money from donors.
How much did you invest in each of Matt Tierman's companies?
I don't think that's any of your business.
We're at the pinnacle of Mount Everest.
Are you refusing to answer the question?
Yes.
The only thing that has changed is that we broke the biggest story in our organization's history.
If a board statement goes out, it's fucking over.
A week later, everything changed.
And it wasn't right.
It was the timing of it that was so suspicious.
Is it fair to say that 3 of the 4 companies you've invested in, you would consider to be in the medical field?
So what did the board think people were going to assume?
One of the companies could be sold to a big pharma.
Like Pfizer.
Objection.
Did the board not think that people were going to assume the worst?
I want to talk about your investments.
I want to talk about you.
I'm a fighter.
You're a cheat.
I'm a warrior.
You're a liar.
And I will get my justice. Not revenge, but justice.
Is it all about money?
Too bad you can't afford that.
Big difference.
How do you define conflict of interest?
You raise the alarm internally. Oh, this is the clip right here. We could watch it. I don't think you've seen this, Aaron. They're saying they gotta get paid.
There's a ladder. Oh, shit!
Oh, fuck.
And we see it, and then the cartel looks at us, and there they are.
No, get the ladder.
There's the scout.
The ladders. Look at these. These guys have got a ladder right here.
And screams, "You ain't with dick."
There's a cut right there. Look. They got ladders.
They're startled. They're running away.
He's giving us the middle finger. Did you see that?
They were sawing through that
I need to get
fence.
that audio recording device off the fence.
Anyway, that's.
Oh yeah, it doesn't take long either.
Well, you get through there. How long does it take?
I mean,
I don't know for sure, but
gotta go. He's calling
like they're through it pretty quick. Like it's pretty
We have to
sad.
finish the job, he said.
This is dangerous.
I'd be
Come on, guys,
surprised
let's
if
go.
it's
We gotta
15,
get out
20
of here.
minutes maybe.
15, 20.
Everyone's here.
It's tough to say because we don't know
Yeah.
exactly. I haven't sat there with time yet, but they get through and they cut through that fence pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, so you raised the alarm internally, and you even got officially reprimanded for the crime of not removing migrants' earring.
Yeah.
You were told by the supervisor. Is that right?
Yeah.
Look at this document, January 30th. Not removing a migrant's earring.
Yeah.
What is that about?
Yeah. So I don't know for sure, but I think that was, again, when I saw that dog pile and I told management, I said, listen, I'm not going anywhere, but I'm sick of seeing this type of stuff. And I know some of you guys think it's funny, but from now on, I'm going to start reporting you guys. I didn't report you guys. I had to report.
You're talking about reporting them.
Yeah. I said, I'm going to start naming names for some of you supervisors that think it's
After
funny.
they wrote this letter.
No. This is before. This was. I think it's possible. This could have been for a number of reasons, but this letter came like the allegations of insubordination came like about 2 days after I told them, hey, I'm tired of this crap. I'm tired of coming in and seeing people dog piled up, freezing, and just the general. I don't want to finish out my career being forced to do stuff that I was never doing. I ran around this desert for years, catching dopers, catching people. And if I'm in the desert with 12 dopers and it's cold, I let them have their blankets. I'm not going to sit here in the parking lot and watch you guys laugh it off that these guys are gang piled up like this, you know what I mean? Or dog piled, whatever. But so I basically threatened them. I said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm either getting fired or retired. That's how I'm leaving. I'm not getting transferred to another station. That's not an option.
Which was the sort of integrity that you would expect from your leadership.
Right.
Like going into their supervisors and yeah.
The first day back on the line, oh man, I should probably keep that supervisor's name.
Yeah, we'll make sure that's redacted.
Sure that's
we're not gonna. This
Please.
is. I mean, this is pre-taped, so we'll make sure that's redacted.
And I appreciate that because also, so he ordered me to remove an earring. Now we had 500 people that were claiming they were out in the desert for 2 days. They were hungry. Mm-hmm. They were starting to fight with each other. We had tasers coming out. People wanted me to pepper ball these guys. I transported some. I came back. They were getting ornery again. The supervisor comes out. I've worked with this guy for probably at least 17 years. I was talking with some of the guys. I'm security and I'm transport. He's an EMT. He's a supervisor. He's an EMT, and he says basically what you see in the memo. What it amounted to me was I thought like this is weird. I thought he was joking at first, and then I realized, oh, he's doing like a Simon Says with me. This is like the moment he's gonna order me to do something that's absurd because he's an EMT. Why is he ordering me to take out an earring? But it's 500 guys, all hungry. We need to process them, and he's got a guy from India. And a lot of them have little tiny studs, and they're twisted, maybe even grown into their ears at this point. And he's ordering me to remove it, and I've got.
But why is he ordering you to remove an earring?
I think he just wanted me to. I think it was a challenge, really. I think part of it was a challenge.
Just to mess with
you? Yeah, I think he just wanted to mess with me. I think it was just a BS order. It had, I'm not an EMT. I didn't have the tools. I have a pepper ball launcher in my hands. I think it was just complete horse crap. We have nurses at the station. There was I've never heard anybody order anybody to take an earring out.
Yeah, it seems strange.
Especially at that time. It was just bizarre. Like I said, I thought it was a joke at first, and I challenged him like I laughed at him. I laughed it off, and then he just kept pressing me. And the sad thing is my amazing lawyer. I had the Government Accountability Project. I got to tell you, my lawyer, she tore that whole thing up. I mean, I like to say she like chewed up she like took their lunch, ate it, chewed it up, spit it out, made them, I mean, it was embarrassing. And I'm sure he saw the video. He wasn't in on it, but he saw the video, I would imagine, or got wind of it, because he, to this day, barely talks to me. I mean, he doesn't even have the, and I've tried to come in and I'll say, hey, how are you doing? And he won't even, like, he can't talk to me over it, And I feel bad about it because I'm like, I tried to stop it from happening.
He wants to do it, but in the dark, not shine a light on the letter that he's wrote. I mean, although if he's writing that he's ordering you to take away an earring, and he's putting that in writing in an official letter. Well, it's strange.
And then, in that letter too, they kicked it over to another station. So they had the patrol agent. That's the guy who ruled on it. And you see the wording. It's crazy. Like, I was detrimental. My failure to follow that order to remove the earring was detrimental to the Border Patrol's mission. It's something along that line.
It seems like an ego thing.
It's crazy.
They just don't like that you're not following their orders, and they're going to make your life a living hell.
And I will tell you, from my experience with the Border Patrol, the fact that I don't know why. This is me, this is like supposition on my part. I don't know why they sent it to the neighboring station, Casa Grande station. It could be because they knew I was at that point, we had already had contact my lawyers and the Border Patrol. And maybe they just thought, well, let's show some impartiality here, But I can promise you, in the Border Patrol, once they send something out of station like that, that's like a huge wink, wink, nod, nod. We need you to screw this guy. You know what I mean? Like, There's no impartiality once they kick it over to the, you know what I mean? That's like, hey, this guy's a troublemaker. Get him for us.
Get him for something.
Yeah, that's not how they.
So you brought this to the attention of Office of Special Counsel and filled out forms about gross mismanagement, failure to provide blankets to detainees. This is the report government wrongdoing disclosure form. But what was the point where you're like, I'm going to Congress? Because you went to Congress.
Okay. So this is backpedaling a bit, I guess, or at least in March or so. Okay, so I go to Office of Special Counsel in March. Nothing gets done. And they almost had me acting as like an investigator, right? And I'm begging them, please. And I'm telling them, I don't know why it's all broken or why we're doing this, but that's why you need to come in. And my exact words, I would tell her, I say, you come in and shake the tree, you'll find bad fruit, but you got to come in and do this. And she would have me like running around. And I was like, I mean, it was so stressful. I can't fully begin to tell you how stressful it is. Like, I feel like I'm the investigator and I'm dying inside because I'm seeing stuff happening and I'm begging. And then the lawyer that I was working with for OSC, she made it seem like somebody was coming, like, oh, hey, get ready. They might, we're getting ready to close. We're going to submit it. And then nothing. I think she thought something was going to happen. And she wanted me to show her that there was a violation of policy. And I'm like, listen, we're violating court orders. So I'm pretty sure our policy is to follow court orders. But then I got her the final thing to show that this isn't our policy. This is in our policy. Anyway, so nothing happens. It goes that we had a fairly mild spring where it wasn't that hot. And by not hot, I mean, it was it was under 110, and I was sitting outside that overflow area. That's what we called it, where the one that I showed you, the original one that had the kind of the higher awning. And I was sitting out there with another senior agent, and I'm like, this is what I had said with the patrol agent in charge with the mass casualty thing was really, a lot of it was talking about how I had told him in muster, like, hey, it's going to be 115 out here eventually. I don't think I don't think it's legal to leave dogs out in that type of heat with no shade in Arizona. I'm pretty sure there's laws against leaving your animals out like that. So we're talking about it, me and this senior agent, and I'm like, it's going to be, I was on the night shift, he's on the day shift, and he's taken over. I think I was maybe on guard or maybe, I don't know, or security for that lot. And I said, OSC didn't do anything. I don't know what I don't know what else to do, man. I think I got to call Congressman Grijalva. And I think if this sun crests over this hill, I'm calling Grijalva's office, and maybe the deputy, I think it was the deputy commissioner of OSC. I think that's her title. I'm not sure. I'm calling her again. I'm saying, hey, they're doing it. They're leaving these people out here in 115-degree heat. I can't do it. I can't in good conscience sit here and watch these people make us do this, you know? And I talked to him, and we watched as the day rose, and we watched the sun come up over that hill, the hill that we climbed. And I'm watching, and we sat there. And this guy's got more time than me, you know. He's more senior than I am, and he's like, make the call, and I'm like, I'm making the call. So I think I called the deputy chief first. I think she was on leave. And then I went home and I put in an email to my congressman. But yeah, so that was when I decided to go to Congress. And now the crazy thing with that was about the same time I met my best ally. It was a woman in Ajo, and she was amazing. Morgan, she is the one. I had come home, and it was probably, I don't know if it was the day after, but it was when they weren't putting any water out on the border road. You know, there was nothing. It was a disaster. I mean, it had been going on long enough, and I stopped. I went home, and I think maybe this was the next day after contacting Congress, or 2 days later. And it was just an epic disaster. I was out with a couple trainees and helping give people water because nobody was doing anything. And the Good Samaritans water barrels, they were really small barrels because this would just start to get crazy out there, and they weren't able to keep up with the water. And I saw some people across from my house that were working on a house, and I could tell that these were like people doing charitable like work, restoring, working on the older folks in the neighborhoods. They're, painting their houses and stuff. So I stopped to talk to them, and I said, hey, you guys need to get involved. We're going to die out there. Agents, aliens, this is a complete disaster. I've contacted Office of Special Counsel. I've filed complaints. Nobody cares. Your water barrels, and because one of the ladies knew or worked with some of the maybe Humane Borders. I'm not sure which organization. I don't want to say for sure who was out there responsible for the water barrels, and it wasn't their fault. But I was like, your barrels are dry. They're running dry. There's so many people. There's hundreds a shift. Hundreds of people a shift are coming through, and we are overwhelmed, and the Border Patrol is doing nothing, or at least our station. Management, every shift was doing its own thing. That's where I filed one of the reasons I filed the mismanagement, because nobody knew what the hell was going on from one shift to the next. It was a complete disaster, And I just begged these people, these total strangers, and this gal Morgan, who was amazing.
Morgan is who?
She's just a local person who I met in Ajo, going basically crying to her about how desperate the situation was in Ajo, and she wound up putting me in contact with
legal help. And at this point, you were a year or two before you retired. April 2023, so it's exactly 2 years before you retired, almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
And were you concerned about losing your pension or being retaliated against?
Oh, yeah, because honest to God, it was like 2 days after shortly after, this is all within a week's period. And I talked to somebody on the phone at Grijalva's office, and she said, and she did a little voicemail back and forth with me, like, oh, we need times and dates. And I called her, and I don't know if I said it over the phone or it was a personal message or talked to her directly. I said, listen, you need to understand, this isn't yesterday. This isn't names and times and dates of something last week. This is now. We need resources now. We need management. We need resources. We need water. We need food. We need shade. We need shelter now. I don't know if you need to bring the Red Cross. We need stuff now, and it needs to happen. And it was, I think, 2 days after they called me back, or maybe it was that conversation. She says, "Oh, you know what, Mr. Veckey, we got everything we need. You're good. Thank you." And then it was like 2 days later or something, they said they reached out to CBP, or I'm getting my times a little mixed up I wound up eventually getting a letter that said that they had reached out to CBP. Okay, that's what it was. So she said I was good. So on the phone, she said I was good. On the phone, she told me I was good. They didn't need any more information. We're reaching out to CBP, right? It was 2 days later, I got the cease and desist order. That's what happened. And then it was like a month or two later that I got the letter saying that Grijalva sent me, that was actually sent to him. So he forwarded me a letter that he received from CBP saying that they had opened an investigation. With Office of Professional Responsibility. The funny thing is Office of Professional Responsibility never came and talked to me. So I don't even think they ever did an investigation. And that's when they gave me that cease and desist order, accused me of releasing sensitive law enforcement information outside of the Border Patrol, which is a complete lie. And that cease and desist order was dated a month prior. So they had this cease and desist order in the office, like say around mid-June, June 15th, 16th is when it was dated. They didn't serve me the gag order, what was ruled to be decided to be a gag order. They didn't serve it to me until after Grijalva's office was contacted, and they knew I was talking to Grijalva's office.
It's just unbelievable that it's so unbelievable to me and you, but it's perfectly believable and just regular affairs of human behavior to retaliate against someone. All of this is based upon you just wanting the guys to act publicly how they act privately.
Yeah.
This is wrong. This is outrageous. And they're retaliating against you for just acting on the things that they were saying to you about these women and children being mistreated.
Yeah.
Do you have that clip from AmFest where Aaron goes on stage?
Thank you. Folks, there are people inside my agency that don't want me here speaking to you tonight. In fact, since I became a whistleblower, they've served me, you're welcome. They've served me illegal gag orders. They've accused me of insubordination. And just 2 days ago, they called me in to investigate me for the interview I did with James O'Keefe a couple months ago. They tell me that the interview was unauthorized. Well, I tell them I don't need their authorization to talk to James O'Keefe. I answer to a higher authority.
What are they screaming there?
Christ is King.
Christ is King. Wow, and there's Zach. I mean, you said you didn't need their authorization to talk to me. How was that, by the way, being in Turning Point in front of 5,000, 10,000 students?
I thought I wet myself.
You thought you wet yourself?
Yeah. a lot of adrenaline and stuff going through. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Going from being in the desert to being on
pretty
stage.
Scary, terrifying.
But I mean, you don't do that. You're not doing this for. I've gotten a chance to know you. You're not doing this for validation or social credit. Obviously, that's not you. By the way, many people do it for that reason, particularly people in politics and media. But you're not doing that. And I was talking to the Florida Tech guy, who was probably the most inspiring conversation I've ever had. This is the recent guest that hasn't. At the time that people are listening to this, it has come out, but it hasn't come out as of the time of me talking to you. And he said that doing the right thing was like exercising a muscle, that no one really does it, but you do it and it grows over time. Do you agree with him on that?
Yeah, I definitely, having gone through this, I think it's where I've kind of looked at it as something we fancy, like integrity is it can be a value. You can value it or not, right? You can put it up there with things. And I think Americans, maybe painting too broad of a brush to the Americans, but I think culturally we see movies and we see certain movies and we think, oh, look at that guy. He's got integrity and honor, and we see it in the movies. But then when we have to really do things in our lives to capture that integrity, it really means, holy crap, I might lose my job, or I might sacrifice a lot, and when it comes down to that, then it's really hard. So you can romanticize about integrity and honor, but in practice, it's really difficult.
Well, for what Rick said at Florida Tech was, he didn't want to lie.
Yeah.
He just didn't want to lie. And he said he wanted to feed his children spiritually, not just physically and materially. He said he wanted to feed his children cotton candy, which is a metaphor, but it's like people talk about the need to feed their kids. And I think another clip that was really powerful, guys, I don't know if we have this one. It was from the interview I did with Aaron back in the desert, and he's talking about, you don't say the word grandpa or grandma, you say
tata.
Tata.
Yeah.
What is that?
Tata, it's a grandpa in Spanish.
Really?
Tata.
I didn't know that. Do we have that clip? This is powerful.
And what's important to me is that when my granddaughter is old enough and she's in high school and she comes to me and says, Grandpa, Tata, Aaron, she says, what were you doing? Weren't you in the Border Patrol back then? I can look at her with a straight face and say, baby girl, I was trying. I tried. I fought and I tried. I did my best. And I don't fire me, Maybe they will. Maybe after this they will, but my conscience will be clean.
My conscience will be clean. That was to me the most powerful thing you said to me. We were in the desert. God, I love going out in the field and making line in the sand and doing this type of work, but the lighting wasn't the best. But we're in the desert, and it seems like you and Rick both have this theme where it's the legacy that you leave to the generation after you. In this case, 2 generations, Tata. Mm-hmm. But in his case, it was literally his 4-year-old and his newborn. And he wanted to set the example for them. And it was about doing the right thing by them. That seems to be a common theme I'm hearing. I don't know if you thought about your children and grandchildren when you were making these decisions about going to, Congress and
I think
speaking the truth.
At Turning Point, I said walking by faith, and I definitely had a coming to God moment, because I haven't by no means been a perfect man, and I definitely had to weigh going to OSC and understanding that, and that, I could put myself out there and expose myself, and who knows what one thing leads to another, and how people will come at me, people that, you have your haters, obviously. Mm-hmm. And it's a scary thought, but at some point I had that conversation with myself and with God, and, Lord, maybe the lions will try to devour me, but if that's your plan, so be it. I'll accept it, but I have to do this. I pray that that's not, I'm here to learn whatever lesson you got to teach me, but I can't sit by. And as far as for my kids' sake, I really do believe, and my grandchildren, that I will be asked about these things one day. And where was I? What was I doing? And I think just because I haven't been perfect or good or right, or, I've been wrong at it. Just because I've been imperfect doesn't mean I shouldn't try to do better. And I think that that's part of the problem with some people making bad decisions is they think, well, if I open my mouth, somebody's going to say, well, haven't you done this? And I don't want that to be the thing that keeps me from doing something good in the future, is having something thrown back in my face that I was imperfect before. So I just, that's how I looked at it. And that's what kind of pushed me forward, as I got to. And if I take my lumps, I take my lumps.
Yeah. Did you thought about, devoured by lions, like the public criticism?
Public criticism, just, anybody can come out nowadays and,
Has anyone really done that with you?
Not so far.
Has this been covered by any mainstream media? I should know the answer to that question.
Not so much.
Well, the media's changed so much.
I don't think anything.
That's one thing that's definitely changed in the last 20 years. Changed in the last 2 years.
Is what?
The media. Maybe 15 years ago or 9 years ago, perhaps there would have been an Arizona Republic article about you and attacking you, but I don't think that's a thing now. I think the media is it seems to be so niche and segmented, even by virtue of what we're doing right here, that there's just that whole dynamic has changed. But not a lot of criticism.
No, I don't think I've had anything written bad about me other than maybe some comments. But that can obviously change at any point. Somebody could come out. That said, I mean, again, I'm not going to stop. I've told you I will talk to anybody. Anytime you want me to talk about it.
Listen.
Anybody willing to listen, because I think what happened was wrong, and I think there's going to be ramifications for what happened. I think the American people got, were done a disservice, and I think the Border Patrol, I do believe we were pawns. I do believe the aliens were pawns. I think they were brought here under false pretenses. I think they were given over-promised, under-delivered by the administration, right? And I do believe I wanted to say something. Morgan had used a term, I think, and if you want to look into the minds of, or maybe understand why the Border Patrol why more agents didn't act or went along with it. She real quickly, like maybe the second day when I talked with her, she used the term that we were institutionalized. And I thought, and it struck a chord with me, and I'll never forget that, because I think we are to a certain extent. I think we get the job and we cling to it to a certain degree. Another term I've heard is golden handcuffs, but we invest a lot to get the job. Get the job. It took me 2.5 years, giving blood, giving urine, giving ear tests, eye tests, and then you go through an academy, and it can be a washout program.
Academy?
The academy is 4.5 months, at least it was for me. They teach you Spanish.
For people who don't even know what that is, there's a Border Patrol Academy?
It's Border Patrol Academy.
Do you have to pay for it?
No, you get the job, or after you go through this vetting process, and then you get you get an offer, you go summoned to the academy. After you've given all this blood and done all these push-ups or whatever, then you get a job offer, a tentative offer. You go to the academy. It can last, at the time, it was like 4.5 months. Then you get, if you pass that, you go to your station. Then they have a FTU program, and that was pretty much a washout program. They try to get you to quit because you can't get fired. So they try to get you to quit. So by the time you're at possibly a really tough station where there's no hospitals, there's no, it can be tough living in the desert. So you give up a lot, you give up a lot of your, of a normal sense of life. I think a lot of people aren't used to. And then, it's tough to just see it all go to shit and say, well, I'm just going to quit. Depending on how many years you got in. But besides that, I mean, there's a lot of other things too, that again, the dysfunction of the Border Patrol, that I think just makes it tough for guys to come forward. And I think institutionalized was a really good.
I mean, it's all about getting a job. To me, it sounds like it's getting a job and getting paid.
Yeah.
It's what it's
I think
about.
for some people, again, it's definitely, some people don't do the job. Some people get the job and they don't do the job.
What's the purpose of being there for those people?
Some people, it's clearly just pay me. I'm here to work, or I'm here to get paid, and I'm here to retire one day.
And to your point, it's almost like those people think that you're the odd one.
Right.
They think that you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Just be like us. It's weird.
Yeah. But there are good ones. There are really good guys that are busting their butts, and that's demoralizing too when you give so much and only to be betrayed by this.
Well, the more you bust the butt, the more you do the right thing, the more punished you're going to be.
Yeah, and that's sometimes the case too. Yep.
So it's like you're going to get punished for doing the right thing, and you can you can take a punishment for a few years, but for 20 years, at some point you just say, okay, the incentives are aligned for me to do the wrong thing.
Yeah. Some guys succumb to it.
I mean, I think that almost everyone would succumb to that. It's only natural.
Yeah.
You said the cartels completely run the border. You said that to me in Arizona.
Yes.
And the Border Patrol agent is only allowed to work as hard as the cartels permit.
Yep.
So the cartels sound like they're definitely in charge.
There were 100%.
I asked you, do you think there are people working for the Border Patrol that are double agents for the cartels? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I've not seen it personally, other than I know there was an agent in the last 10 years, I think, that got at Ajo Station that went to prison for moving a lot of stuff. So, and he was coming into work and picking up, I think he was coming allegedly. I shouldn't say allegedly. I think he was charged with it, but rumor has it, I should say, he was coming in off duty and somehow taking a government ride down to the border and picking up the narcotics and then going back. And I think he got arrested going to but as far as like, I've never would have even suspected that guy. So I've never once looked at an agent and thought for a second that guy's like on the take. Now, there's policies where I've questioned, like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Why are they doing this? How could that be? And I think other agents have questioned the policies because there's so many policies that tie our hands that don't seem reasonable, or at least policies that, aren't conducive for getting the job done. How about that? So. But I can't say that that's for sure because somebody's dirty. I've just never personally.
I'm sure there
seen
are
it.
dirty people.
It'd be
Catching
foolish.
them on tape,
You'd be, yeah.
I doubt you're going to have someone come forward and say, "You got me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
None of these guys ever admit they're wrong. They just retaliate and attack. If you don't have integrity, it kind of follows from there that you're not going to plead guilty to a crime you've committed. You're going to lie and say you didn't do it or cover it up. So you've talked about how your fellow agents have experienced heavy personal emotions, struggles, alcohol abuse, men breaking down in tears, war veterans wondering what they were even fighting for.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you ever been through that yourself?
Definitely. I think the alcohol for sure, coming home and, living alone for a long time and having nights where, it starts off as a barbecue and the next thing you know, I'm just texting my family, your government hates you, just fighting with my friend over like, what the heck's going on here? Why don't you support me more? Just leaving, arguing with my buddy over, how to get more people involved, there's been nights for sure where I've, have definitely not my finer moments, but yeah, I think interpersonal relationship struggles with just from driving the stretch from Ajo to the station. There's a stretch where you could see the overflow facility or where we keep all these people, and they'd have the big bright spotlights, and there were days that I think, you know what, I gotta take it easy on the booze. But I'd see that light coming into work. And then as soon as I'd see that light and I know we're gonna have about we're gonna be 500% over capacity at least today. And I'd say, oh man. And by the time I'd see that light, I can't wait to get home and get a drink and a cigar.
One thing about your job is you're as a tracking bush agent, you were walking how many steps a day? People say walk 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you probably didn't count it, but using the law of averages, you're probably doing like 30,000, 40,000.
I know I've definitely had several 20-mile tracks where I've
in one day.
Yes, absolutely.
I do some backpacking trips in California, and I might do. I'm a novice. I'm not cardio isn't necessarily. I'm great at it. I'm good at it. You're on a different level. You're like Olympic level. I've seen this guy walk through the desert. He is the fastest walker I have ever seen. I mean, I had to do a moderate jog to keep up with your walk. But I'd say if I was doing 12 to 15 miles a day on a trail, like the hiking trail, like backpacking, that would translate into somewhere around 45,000 steps.
Yeah.
So you're pulling 50,000 steps a day. That's got to be good for your body.
I don't know. I think
No?
on a trail maybe, but like, and I always argue that it seems like it would, and you do get certain amount of conditioning. I'm sure my diaphragm is amazing.
Your heart's probably in good shape.
But the knees, the cartilage, I think that type of stuff.
It's not walking on the desert sand. It's walking on the rocks and stuff.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah. You're never, you're constantly going in and out of washes. It's not a groomed trail. It's not even a moderately maintained trail. It's not a Forest Service trail. You're not doing the Appalachian Trail that's beat down. You're doing you're walking through open desert. You're blasting through cholla and barrel cactus and all kinds of god awful stuff and over lava rock. And that's what you got to understand too. Like the people coming here, the ones that actually are working for it, not the ones that give. Actually, I shouldn't say that because a lot of the people that come here, obviously, they push through the Darien Gap, and by the time that's something too. By the time they make it to the southern border, that's the finish line. And I've actually had the misunderstanding of like thinking, well, Mexicans, we're used to chasing Mexicans through the desert, and they're working their asses off to get to the United States to get that. To put in their time working. A lot of the people showing up, giving up asylum, they're from other parts of the world, but they've done a lot of traveling. These people might be months on. It might have taken them months to get here, and I don't even, and I've talked to people where they've said they've seen like 5 bodies along the way through the jungle. I'm assuming the Darien Gap, but going through marching through the desert, the Sonoran Desert from the Sonoita up to Casa Grande or I-8, wherever they're loading out, they're not just walking some nice little stretch of land. They go through, there's mountain chains and stuff, and they'll side hill it through, and up and over, and the dopers will do it. The mules, the drug mules, they'll just up and over, and they'll go 15 miles easy. Sometimes more if they're being pushed without stopping, without taking a real serious sit down lunch,
They're just conditioned.
I mean, they're just driven. It's life or death. They'll get left behind,
Yeah.
So I might march 20 miles out of pride. Like, I'm going to catch these guys. They're walking because the guide says, hey, keep walking or you're not getting in that truck. You're going to be left behind. We're leaving you, so that's a different.
Are you ever scared out there?
Scared. I mean, yes, I always tell people you'd be silly not to be scared. There's all kinds of things that can scare you, man, sometimes a donkey can sneak up on me and start making noise and scare the crap out of me. But, as far as like living and dying, that comes into your mind for sure. But scariest things driving on the highway, those roads out there are the biggest frightening.
Why is that?
I mean, you got people headed to Rocky Point, drunk out of their minds, probably high on God knows what.
What's the craziest thing you've ever seen out there? Just, you've been doing this for 20 years.
The craziest thing,
like women and children stuff, like girls all alone, rape trees.
As far as like horrible, I don't know that I've seen anything like too horrible. I've tended to work nights and I tend to avoid bad smells. So I've been really fortunate. I mean, you'll find there's shallow graves, rock graves where people, will just not make it and they're up in mountains somewhere and there's a pile of rocks and what's that?
They're decomposing.
No, I mean, I've found.
But you can smell it.
Yeah. I'm sure. But there's also, this might sound bad, but if I smell something decomposing, I'm not going over there to investigate.
Of course not. Yeah.
I'm going to assume it's a horse or a cow. I don't need to, if they're gone, they're gone. That might sound callous, but I don't need to stumble upon that.
So you were officially cleared of wrongdoing following a federal inquiry recently, and we got that letter, and you were cleared. So. Did the agency acknowledge the mistake? Here it is, May 30th. That's pretty recent. This is to inform you that the case report has been completed. I have conclusion the allegations were not supported by the evidence, and no further administrative action will be taken. We're not allowed to say this man's name, right? Is this public letter?
Oh, that. I think you're fine with
Please
that.
consider
guy.
this matter closed.
Yeah.
This is the Patrol Agent Chief Assistant Tucson Sector. So, was this all quietly swept under the rug?
Yeah.
Did you get anything else? What did it feel like to know that you're vindicated?
It felt great. I mean, I think it was self-evident, that I didn't do anything wrong. This was just something that somebody felt they had to do. It was vindictive in nature, I think. I don't think there was any honest investigation. One bright spot, one of the bittersweet things is that I do believe that the investigator handling it, I think she, just based on my interaction, like in the interrogation room, I think she, just her posture, she could have gone after me. She let me talk. She let me tell the story of at least a little bit about what I saw and really kind of make the first, what I think, official statements to an actual investigator. And she listened, and, at some point she had let me know, like, oh, I didn't know that she had gone through all that, whatever. But I think what I gleaned was that I think she was as much a pawn as I was. I think she was sent in by the dogs to go mess with me. And I think she probably sat in that room across from me thinking, holy cow, they sent me in this room to mess with this guy. He's a full-blown whistleblower, knows his rights, and she's getting ready to retire. And she's thinking, and now I'm going to be drawn into an investigation because some jerk wants to mess with this guy for doing the right thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I don't know that.
You might be right. I mean, it seems like you know your rights. And one thing that strikes me about you is that you have done this very carefully. That was the first impression I had of you, which was you're not going guns blazing, speaking out of turn. You were doing it the appropriate path. By the way, usually that doesn't matter because the whistleblower laws doesn't have teeth, but you're doing it, you were following the letter of the law. You were not deviating from you did it very ethically. And I think that other whistleblowers should follow in your footsteps in that way. And they will be retaliated against. Not by virtue of the law, but by virtue of the human ego of the eventual supervisor who doesn't like, the fact that they blew the whistle on them. It's just ego. It's all like, I'll be honest with you. If someone under my employ violated their non-disclosure agreement, in a company, in a corporation, but I think what you're doing in the United States government is necessary. But I really admired how you did it ethically and appropriately. And you weren't just a maverick about it. You weren't just speaking out of turn. But what message do you have for other people who are faced with the same crisis of conscience within the Border Patrol?
Yeah, I think as a Christian, for sure, I think, or any person of faith, but particularly as me being a Christian, I think definitely you got to pray on it, talk to God and make sure that it's the right thing to do. Make sure it's the right thing with your family. Obviously, if you're married, you don't go off and do it without talking to your wife about it and your family. You do. But if you're married, you should, hopefully you're in a good place where you're a strong marriage and you know that you have a life of integrity and you can make moral decisions and telling the truth is important. And but as far as taking that step, you just have to walk by faith. You have to, trust that you're going to be vindicated. And I think what I've learned is that there are people that have come to my aid, like in Ajo. I have a friend in Morgan. I have a friend, Andrea, at the Government Accountability Project, who stood by my side and did a great job. I got James O'Keefe here, who I think, my opinion, is the tip of the spear for truth telling.
Thank you.
I don't have to carry this on my shoulders like I got to make sure the world knows anymore. You have the platform, and I can come and tell you the truth if you want to hear it, you know? And all I know is it was a matter of me saying, God, give me the strength to do the right thing.
Give me the strength to do the right thing.
And he surrounded me with people that protected me. So you can take that for what it's worth, but it worked for me, and I hope it works for you if you just choose to do the right thing.
That's really powerful. Give me the strength to do the right thing. It's hard doing the right thing. It's one of the core values here at OMG and our foundation, which is do the right thing always. But it's strength. There goes that muscle analogy, right? Like exercising an arm that you, but you stood up, you stood by that supervisor lady you were mentioning, said, you know what, the hell with this. I'm not going to fight this guy. I got to retire. If you had backed down, if you had said, I'm scared, but you stood there. And a mentor of mine used to say, like, schoolyard bullies, they're not used to getting punched in the face. Not that you were punching them in the face, but you're standing for your rights. So I admire you. I consider you a friend. After this ends, Aaron and I are going to walk outside and make a couple phone calls to some folks who are struggling right now and on the inside and dealing with some things. And I hope they're watching this, and I'm proud to know you, and I think I'm going to bring you back because I feel like there's another 2 hours of meat and substance and updates. But thank you for coming on, Aaron Veckey. And is there anything you want, any call to action or people? The last guy had a GoFundMe page, a Give Send Go page.
Wait, who?
This was Rick, the professor at Florida Tech, lost his job, and he didn't sign a $100,000 agreement asking him to stay silent. So now he has nothing.
Oh no! Give Send Go to that guy.
Yes, well, there you go.
Sure.
Give Send Go. Let's put in post production. Let's put the URL for Rick's Give Send Go. What a kind gesture. Thank you very much, Aaron.
All right.
Thanks for being here, man. Thank you.
What is your price? Because if your price is not your life, then you are for sale.